Christ being the mediator of the New Testament. And so we're going to come out of the book of Hebrews, in Hebrews, the 9th chapter, but we're going to use some background from the 8th chapter. Christ being the mediator of the New Testament says that had to have been a First Testament. And so when we study the Bible, we talk about the Old Testament and the New Testament. And in the Old Testament, it's also called the Old Covenant. The New Testament is called the New Covenant. So let's just see how that came to be. We note that when Christ had finished his work here on earth, and that in the first chapter of the book of Acts, that he goes back to heaven. He catches a cloud, goes back to heaven, sits down on the right hand of the Father. Let's just see in the book of Hebrews, in that 8th chapter, verse 1, it says, "Now of the things which we have spoken, this is his Son. We have searched an high priest who is seated on the right hand of the throne of the majesty in the heavens." So, what Christ did, completed his work and went back to heaven and sat down on the right hand of the Father, which means that in the Old Testament, they had a pattern. In the Old Testament, Moses had set up the first tabernacle after they had come out of Egypt. When they came out of Egypt, there was a shedding of blood, because what they said, when I see the blood, I will pass right over. So then, when Israel came out of Egypt, the death angel came through, blood was put on the doorpost of each household, and God said, when I see the blood, I will pass right over. So there was a shedding of blood. That was an indication that Israel was being delivered from Egypt, which is an indication that that was a sinful place. So once they crossed the Red Sea, Moses set up a tabernacle. And in that tabernacle, he had the table of shewbread, he had the Ark of the Covenant, and the mercy seat that was surrounded by 2 cherubims, 2 angels. So in that first covenant, what had happened is when Moses finished all of his works, he sprinkled everything with blood. Because, without the shedding of blood, there is no remission of sin. So then, this first covenant, this first testament, it didn't have an effect until blood was shed. And that's why under the Old Testament, when people committed sins, they had to kill ox, turtle dove, or some kind of animal without blemish in order to have their sins covered. Okay, their sins were covered. They were not wiped away. So in this 9th chapter, it says, and at verse 11 it says, "But Christ, being come as an high priest of good things to come, by a greater and more perfect tabernacle, not made with hands, which is to say, of this building." So the first tabernacle was made by the hands of man, and the second tabernacle, man didn't have nothing to do with it. In the first tabernacle, in that 8th chapter, it indicates that the priest would go in once a year and take the blood of goats and bulls, and he would go through the outer court, and finally he would get to the inner court, which is called the sanctum sanctorium, okay, in the Holy of Holies. And there he would take the blood of those bulls and goats and offer a sacrifice for himself and for the people of Israel. Now that was the first tabernacle. Now the second tabernacle in this 9th chapter say, neither by the blood of goats and calves, but by his own blood, he entered in once in the holy place, having obtained eternal redemption for us. So, when Jesus was crucified on Calvary, he was dying for the sins of the world. So now, he goes into a tabernacle in heaven, which is not made by the hands of man, takes his own blood into the Holy of Holies, sits down on the right hand of the Father, which indicates that his work was complete. Now, that signifies that now we have a New Testament or a new covenant. Let's just see how that works. Now, how much more shall the blood of Christ, who through the eternal Spirit offered himself without spot of God, purge your own conscience from dead works to serve the living God? And for this cause, he is the mediator of the New Testament, that by means of death, for the redemption of the transgressions that were under the first testament, they who are called might receive the promise of eternal inheritance. So, that verse 16 says, but where a testament is, there must also of necessity be the death of the testator. So, we all know what a last will and testament is. Basically, what the New Testament is Christ's last will and testament. That's why it's called a testament. And so when we start making out living wills, like right now teachers are making out living wills because they're scared to go back into the classroom, so that will would not become into effect until they die. Let's just see where that came from. Okay? So for where a testament is, there must also of necessity be the death of the testator. Okay? For a testament is a force after men are dead, otherwise it is of no strength at all while the testator liveth. So then, you cannot probate a will until the person who's leaving the will is dead. Okay? So Christ had to die in order for the New Testament to take effect. Okay? So, whereupon neither the first testament was dedicated without blood. For when Moses had spoken every precept to the people according to the law, he took the blood of calves and of goats and sprinkled both the book and all the people, saying, this is the blood of the testament which God has enjoined unto you. So whenever we do the Lord's Supper, we say, this is the bread, indicate that this is the bread of Christ, which represents Christ's body. And then we take the blood and say, this represents the blood of the New Testament, which is shed for you or for many. So, in this Old Testament, in the book of Hebrews, it says, and almost all things are by law purged with blood. And then it says, without the shedding of blood, there is no remission of sins. So Christ shed his own blood, went back to heaven, sat down on the right hand of the Father, and the New Testament came into effect. So now we had the First Testament, which was shed by blood, Moses had sprinkled it with blood. Now we had the New Testament that came into effect after Christ died. So now our sins can be totally cleansed away. Under the Old Testament, the sins could only be covered. So we thank God that Christ came and that he died and that he wipes away all of our sins.